of cash to procure PPE, to procure locations and sites, to secure the safety, the public health and safety of the people of the state of California. So on behalf of the nation's largest state, as governor of the world's 5th largest economy, the state of California, let me applaud the Speaker, applaud Senator Schumer, applaud the Democratic leadership and the compromise that was advanced with Republicans for meeting this moment, noting that this moment in a week or two may necessitate further moments of support, particularly to individuals, not just states, not just to businesses, not just to industries, but to individuals themselves that have been most impacted by this virus. And let me be specific about what I mean by that. We're very pleased with the increase in unemployment benefits, up to $600 on top of what states are already providing. In the state of California, we provide on a weekly basis unemployment insurance grants from anywhere from $40 to as much as $450. And this package would provide for an additional $600 on top of that, so for over $1,000 a week for many Californians. And by the way, the reason I say it's timely, we just passed the 1 million mark in terms of the number of claims just since March 13th. 1 million Californians have now claimed the need to get unemployment insurance, so this cannot happen soon enough. But the magnitude of what happened in 2008 is still manifest for millions of Californians. We still have people that are struggling to get back to where they were before the Great Recession that most recently was defined by Lehman Day, September 15th, 2008, which marked an important moment. People are older and still struggling. And so these are individuals that once again are disproportionately being impacted by this moment. And that's why I say we need to focus on those faces, on their stories, not just the face of government, not just the face of business, but on the faces of individuals day in and day out that are struggling to make ends meet, struggling to feed their family, to feed themselves, to get to the needs of their small businesses. Small businesses need more support. Small business is not something for me that's an abstract. I am proud to have created 23 small businesses in the state of California and employed hundreds and hundreds of workers. I have deep appreciation and respect for the entrepreneurs throughout this country and certainly in the state of California. And I can assure you, even with the significant improvements advanced by the leadership of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, we still need to do more for small business, for nonprofits, and others. So again, I want to just compliment the work that was done. We are very supportive here in the state of California of advancing this bill and having that stimulus do the work that we are all hopeful it will do in real time. We've had wonderful conversations, by the way, to that end. Just got off the phone with Senator Harris, who's been an extraordinary leader for our state, working hand in hand with our partners throughout state agencies, local agencies, and nonprofits to work to delineate exactly what we needed to prioritize. Senator Feinstein accordingly, and I can't say it enough, the incredible leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi. But when we talk about unemployment insurance, we talk about a $600 increase beyond what states are already providing on a weekly basis for the next 4 months. That doesn't mean much when you are facing the burden and the costs associated with, for example, your mortgage. Residential mortgages being top of mind, I imagine, for families all across not only this state but across the country. Over the course of the last few weeks, we've been sitting down with banks large and small, credit unions large and small throughout the state of California, and been in contact with national bank and CEOs around the United States. I personally have had conversations with the heads of J.P. Morgan, the head of U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, a number of other of our nation's largest institutions, and state banks like East West Bank here in the state of California. Some 200 state chartered banks and credit unions have committed to the state of California that they will provide forbearance on foreclosures and on mortgage payments. That is significant. But the nation's bank, so we were encouraged to do the same. And I'm very pleased that Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, Citi, and JP Morgan Chase have all agreed to 90-day waiver of payments for those that have been impacted by COVID-19. And that's an important point to make. It is significant that we have some consistency. It's significant that we don't have a patchwork, one bank to another. That's what happened in 2008. Credit unions doing one thing, banks doing another, state banks doing something altogether different. So we wanted to engage our nation's largest banks and see if we would create some continuity, some consistency across their ranks. And 4 of the 5 largest institutions committed to just that 90-day. Unfortunately, Bank of America did not publicly commit to that. They just committed to 30 days. I hope they will reconsider and join those other banks that are willing to do the right thing by at least extending that commitment to their customers for 90 days. While the state of California doesn't have regulatory oversight of those banks, I'm sensitive to that, and I know that the banks certainly are sensitive to that. They are also recognizing the sensitivity to their customers, not just on the issue of being able to pay their mortgages and having a grace period for 90 days, but also on credit ratings. And that's also part of the broader commitment that we have secured by those nations, 4 of those 5 largest, our nation's banks, and all of the state charter banks and credit unions, counting 200 plus. And so I want to just compliment them for their willingness to engage us and our team, Ben Chita, Commissioner Alvarez, and others that have been working overtime to organize these principles and advance them. We're working on additional issues and get continuity and consistency on ATM fees, on overdraft charges as well, and we'll be announcing more details on that in the coming days. I also, though, recognize while significant to have that continuity as it relates to residential mortgages, as a small business person, you're wondering, as a nonprofit leader, as a church leader, you're wondering what's in store in terms of next announcements, next steps for you. And know in real time we are also working with those same institutions to socialize some continuity and some consistency to help you as well. So no, the job is not done. We're not naive, but we think this is a significant announcement. It's not just a release. It is a significant framework to advance commitments that we have absolute certainty are real, based upon personal commitments that I received directly from the leaders of these companies, again, with the exception, unfortunately, of the Bank of America. I also want to just make a few comments about the work the state of California is doing to meet this moment as it relates to the needs for personal protective gear, as it relates to anticipating our surge capacity. I made an announcement a couple days ago that we're looking to additional 50,000 hotels, or rather units for support from hotels, motels, skilled nursing facility, and our hospitals to find additional bed capacity for acute care throughout the state of California. In terms of that 50,000 number, 30,000 was going to come from an increase of capacity within our hospital system, roughly 40% increase in their capacity and their footprint, and the rest would come 20,000 from the state of California. I'm pleased today that Seton Hospital was one of those early announcements we made. We were able to get a lease on Seton, and Seton now is already operational today. That's a significant milestone. We're not just having conversations in the abstract about finding and procuring assets, but the human resources necessary to operate those assets. And that is the significance of Seton today. It is being now staffed by the extraordinary heroes, our nurses and doctors, and we have at least the first tranche of appropriate personal protective gear that is available at that site. St. Vincent down in LA was another one of our announcements, and we're working to do the same there. And of course, the number of other hospitals that we have also identified and are in the process either of having already taken the physical asset over and in the process of securing the staffing, but also advanced conversation on a number of other hospitals, including CPMC in San Francisco, to provide for more surge capacity. 3 sites already, Santa Clara, Riverside, and San Mateo, where we're working either on the fair grounds or working in the convention centers, to begin the process of converting those larger field medical stations that the President was generously able to procure and provide. Remember, 8 of those are coming to the state of California. That's 2,000 additional medical beds. Those sites are already unpacking, are in the process of being made operational. I mentioned yesterday, I was very proud, and they're right behind me here at our State Emergency Operations Center. We have the leadership of the USS Mercy that are here, and we're working out the details and protocols with LA County, LA City, and LA Port on making sure that site is prepared and prepped for Friday's arrival of that ship, and Saturday, Sunday, as we begin to process the possibility of first individuals to come on board. The configuration, I know there's been a lot of reporting, up to 1,000 beds. A lot of those are bunk beds, may not be ideal, so the number will come down substantially from 1,000. It's still a work in progress, and quite literally, that's the progress that's being made in real time here in our operations center. So we'll announce more on that in the coming days. I want folks to know that we have already distributed 24.2 million N95 masks in the state of California. That is a significant number. It's still insignificant to meet our needs. I was very pleased today in our last briefing. We have now secured literally 100 million new N95 masks, which is not insignificant, but again, still requires us to secure and support additional procurement efforts. But that's good news, and for those healthcare leaders that are demanding more and deserve more, I want them to know when those get off the docks, when they get through the airport and customs, we're going to get them out as quickly as we humanly possibly can. Those procurements are not just limited to N95 masks. Those include coveralls and gowns and shields and the like, and we'll make those numbers public as well for those that are interested. But know this Herculean effort is underway, and it is taking real shape. I'll just be even more specific. I mentioned Sir Richard Branson and Virgin and what they have committed to 747 to Hong Kong to come back into Oakland Airport. There's 1 million N95 masks that are part of that manifest, 150,000 testing kits that are also part of that manifest. This is all hands on deck, or at least on board, specifically to that 747. It's just indication of the work that's being done. Elon Musk announced officially 1,225 ventilators, well in excess of the 1,000 he said he was going to get us. He was able to find an additional 225 and distributed those throughout our hospitals. I mentioned Bloom Energy. These folks deserve recognition. They are converting now about 30 a day of our ventilators. Talk about repurposing a manufacturing plant to meet this moment. And we've got 30 of our 514 ventilators that were in our cache at EMSA and CDPH, and they are repurposing, reconfiguring those assets, and they, again, deserve credit. We speak about tests. I note that 150,000 new test kits coming because of the largesse of the partnerships with Kaiser, with Apple, and Virgin doing substantively the logistics. The testing issues are incredibly important to Californians and Americans. We, like others, have been very vocal about the issues in the last few weeks around reagents, RNA extraction kits, and now with new technologies coming online, higher processing speeds, automation, the higher throughput that you've been hearing about all over the national news. We're getting those operations up and running. As a consequence, we were able to put together a new number in terms of the tests that have been conducted in the state of California. As of yesterday, that number is 66,800, 39,200 more than we had identified the previous day for a number of reasons. Kaiser is finally up and operational, doing 12,000 tests in Northern and Southern California. All of these smaller labs coming online, and finally, we've got reporting protocols that are feeding up into our system. We had the original 22 labs that were reporting consistently. We then got the commercial labs, be it Quest or LabCorp, to start reporting in. And then, of course, our academic institutions, our hospitals from Stanford, UC, our Sutter affiliates, and Kaiser, now more fully operational. This is including, by the way, Verily, the Google affiliate that's doing these field tests that now are not just operationalizing in the Bay Area, but now in Sacramento and Riverside. So more is being done in that space, but let me acknowledge in the outset, 66,800 tests is not enough, and it's not enough for a reason that I mentioned yesterday, and I'll report again today. And that is, it's one thing to do the diagnostics, it's another to get word back on the test results. Tens of thousands of those tests that I just mentioned are waiting for the results to be finalized. The backlog now is not just on reagents and RNA extraction kits and on the swabs themselves and the media to transport the swabs and the collection vials, but now also on the delay in getting the results of these tests. And so we are working overtime. We had a conversation today, a text exchange. The company that says they can provide them in 10 minutes. Others are providing technology, say we'll get them back in 45 minutes. We're just vetting those, and we are working collaborative with our team. We've got a full-time task force just on testing protocols to vet these technologies and make sure that we're not being taken advantage of, because one thing we know in this environment, there are extraordinary people and there are people that do extraordinarily bad things. And so I also want to just extend, that doesn't just include interface with government, people claiming that we need to send the equivalent of Bitcoin in advance to get some materials before they can send them, and questionable activities like that. But I also want people to look out for your own consumer protection, more phishing, more cyber activity. Don't just open any email. Be thoughtful about your own personal protection, particularly as we move more and more online, distance learning, distance work, telework, telemedicine. We become more vulnerable to cyber attacks, cyber hacking, but personal messages from strangers and the like. Just be careful before you provide your credit card, your social security number, your mother's maiden name, your first pet, whatever it may be. Just make sure that you're also being thoughtful, as we are as well, as it relates to a tsunami of people claiming extraordinary things that we have to vet and we have to test. Those test results, by the way, have come back in the state of California, 2,535 individuals as of this morning. And we use a point in time, 10 a.m. On a daily basis, have tested positive in the state of California, 2,535 individuals. That's a 17% increase from the previous day. Tragically, 53 lives lost, including that young person that made national headlines yesterday. And just a point of caution to all of us, and including my own team, as I know people are eager to get information out in real time, and we are as well, and that obviously raised alarm bells across this country because this individual is 17 years old. I just want folks to know there's a protocol and process now in investigating what occurred there with LA County, with CDC, and while it was reported to the state of California through the county, that information, it was reported up, we all, I think, are reminded in this moment that it's not just speed, it's accuracy that must be front and center in our public statements, in our deliberation, and I take that to heart as your governor as well. And so that's being investigated. We'll have nothing more to say on it until we get that information. But I can say this with accuracy. 37 people under the age of 17 in the state of California are part of those that have been tested positive in the state of California. So 36 young folks have been tested positive. 51% as of today, over half 18 to 49 years old. Over half of you, 18 to 49, have tested positive. So these stay-at-home orders are real, and we want to maintain our vigilance. You know, it's interesting. We've been talking about the Olympics in this country. One of the things that all the greatest sprinters in the world have in common, they don't run the 90-yard dash. Let us not run the 90-yard dash on these stay-at-home orders, on home isolation. We can bend the curve. We can defeat this virus, but we can't defeat it unless we commit to fulfilling our individual obligations and our collective responsibilities to meet this moment. These stay-at-home orders are real. They are a bipartisan order. They're not a rural order and an urban order. They're not a Democratic order or a Republican order. The state of California and close to half now of the American people are living under some frame of reference around home isolation. Let's meet this moment. Let's follow through. Halfway is no way. It is absolutely incumbent that we take seriously these orders. We're already seeing a little movement, even in the state of California, and we just want folks to make the appropriate movement for essential business, essential support and services, and with intention go outside, not to congregate. And it's not just social distancing. I think in many ways that's a misleading frame. It's physical distancing that we're after. In some ways you shouldn't be socially distant from others because we're using different mechanisms to which we socially can engage. It's physical distancing. I'm just trying to use language that, you know, if I had a teenager, I have 4 young people, kids, but they understand physical distancing more than they understand social distancing. So for the younger folks out there, physically separate from others and strangers. Don't mix, and don't think for a second that we're a day or two away from lifting that order. We're not. We're not even a week or two away. California can meet this moment. We've been leading in almost every category, and other governors have done an extraordinary job, and all of them deserve credit to some degree or another. And I'm proud to be part of those 50 state governors and their leadership. It is demonstrable, and we are sharing best practices. But it is also incumbent upon us, having just left a conference call with a number of governors across the state, that those best practices include following through on these orders and directives so that we can get through. Maximize the short term so we can minimize the long-term impacts. And you have to focus on economics by focusing on health first. And we must focus on meeting this health crisis so we can ultimately address the economic challenges that are self-evident in the stimulus package and in my admonition that it still needs to go farther for individuals and people into the future. Final point. I was very pleased today. We got our new number, homeless individuals that have the capacity now to get more support and resources. We talked about 2,400 beds that were made available for homeless individuals. In some counties, they're not just using them for the homeless, but they have the capacity to do that. We now have 4,305 hotel rooms in our portfolio, and we're making those available all across the state in real time. And thank you to LA, and thank you to Sacramento. They have identified the exact sites of where the trailers will go, and we're getting those 1,305 trailers. I said 1,309. We lost 5 trailers. That's another conversation, but I want to be precise and specific. We have over 1,300 trailers that will be going out, and as soon as those counties provide more information, we'll get those support services out. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So that's, in broad strokes, an update on a number of issues, and I just continue to be very proud of our hospitals, our nurses, our doctors, our frontline employees that are doing an amazing job, including those that work for the state of California that are meeting the moment, from our budget team to other agency directors that are struggling to keep up but are doing their best under very challenging circumstances. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Los Angeles Times.
So that was Governor Gavin Newsom discussing the benefits the $2 trillion stimulus package will have on California. He said the state will be getting $10 billion in this grant package. $5.5 billion will go to the state itself, and the governor says the other half, $4.5 billion, will be going to cities as well as counties. So if you tuned into the end of this, I just want to recap a couple things real quick. He added, quote, "This bill will be so helpful as we're in the process of trying to get personal protective equipment for our medical community." That's so important right now. So the governor mentioned we have 24.2 million N95 masks that have been distributed in California, but this is the big number. He says they've secured 100 million more that are on the way right now. He applauded congressional leaders for getting this bill done, saying this will be helping the unemployed big time. He mentioned that in just the past 12 days, 1 million Californians have applied for unemployment. That number pretty big. The number of Californians with coronavirus, of course, has shot up, as have the deaths here. And to that end, he said, quote, "These stay-at-home orders are real. We want to maintain our vigilance." He was pleading with young people and younger adults to stay home and commit to fulfilling our individual obligations to meet this moment. Let's touch on the banks real quick. The governor says he's been in touch with several banks and credit unions. Most have agreed to 90 days of mortgage payment relief. So several big announcements that will no doubt help struggling Californians here. We're going to have updates on the governor's remarks on News 8 at 5, as well as the latest on CBS8.com and on our News 8 app, as well as our social platforms. I'm Eric Connor. Let's get you back now to your regular programming.
When it's gonna be a long night, let Trident's long-lasting chew get you through. Trident, chew through.
A lot of folks ask me why their dishwasher doesn't get everything clean. I tell them it may be your detergent. That's why more dishwasher brands recommend Cascade Platinum. With the